Hey everybody, Sean Sewell here from the Engearment.com podcast. I'm super excited to have my good friend Pat Flynn back on. It is Friday. It's the weekend before Father's Day, and we're just riffing and having a good time and talking about what we're doing. And weather is getting nicer, and we're taking workouts outside, and we have some fun stories to share with you. So Pat, thank you for being on the show as always.
Yeah, always looking forward to it, Sean. This is a fun way to start my weekend. I love these conversations.
Well, I appreciate that very much. So speaking of Father's Day, you're a father.
Mm-hmm. I am, yes.
Yes. Any Father's Day plans coming up?
Actually, my wife's father is coming to visit us for the weekend, so that'll be nice. He lives in North Carolina but works out of Chicago, so he stays in Chicago most of the time. So we're about an hour and a half north, and it's worked out well that he's gonna be here in just a couple hours, actually. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, nothing formal. Just we'll just spend some time together as a family. Cook some good food, hang out outside because it's beautiful, and that'll probably be about it.
That sounds ideal. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm sure my wife has a huge surprise for me cooked up. I can't wait.
I found my surprise. It's pretty funny. We don't do much gifts. I get enough gear for free from everybody. So it's always something very thoughtful and something usually off of Etsy. And it's a mug from our dogs, my dog father. And it says, "Thanks for picking up all our crap." So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, so we have a Saint Bernard. Which means a lot of crap. A lot of crap. But it's actually my wife who picks up most of the crap. So I would not be deserving of such a mug.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, we have two dogs, about 60 pounds each. And as a good steward of the environment, I do my best to do both their duties in one bag. Every time I go out and like really efficient, I think of it as like poop dough, like Play-Doh. Yeah. So kind of grotesque, but do my part to save the environment one turd at a time.
That's right. We all play our part. That's very noble, Sean.
Oh, thank you. I love these dogs so much. We were joking before we push record. The Turkish getup, great exercise, one that probably everybody should be doing more often for a lot of reasons, mechanics and connecting things together. I finally found a real life use for it. I was camping in this blizzard last Monday, and I'll put a picture in the video. And we have a roof nest tent on top of our truck, and it's handled all kinds of storms and done very well in wind and rain and even light snow. We got about 6 inches of snow on top of it, so easily 100+ pounds. That thing collapsed on us, luckily at an angle. So we're 8.5 feet up off the ground on the 4Runner, and I had to do like a Turkish get up and grab two dogs, 60 pounds each.
Yikes!
At like 1 a.m. or 1:30 in the morning. So yeah, do your Turkish get ups; they pay off.
Yeah, a real world functional application of the get up.
Yeah.
Anybody who follows me will know that I'm quite a fan of Turkish get ups. I program them sometimes a little bit differently than other people. I don't always use them for just absolute sheer load. I think they're awesome for just, like you said, kind of knitting everything together as a mobility exercise, as a warm-up exercise. Certainly a solid strength move. Just learning to just get up and off the ground with a good amount of weight overhead is going to make you overall strong. It's just going to make you useful in a lot of ways. But underrated also, I found, as a conditioning exercise, doing lighter get-ups consecutively, either by themselves or part of a complex. So the get-up to me is actually itself a multifaceted tool. And I think it's often underutilized. Sometimes people might use it, again, for strength, which is totally legitimate. I think there's kind of diminishing returns once you start doing get-ups with, a baby elephant. I don't know how far you want to go with it. And then think, okay, well, what else could I use this for? And so if people follow my programming, they'll see I do use it for strength, but also a lot in the warm-ups, a lot in the mobility and corrective work, and a fair amount in the conditioning as well.
Absolutely. Actually, I was reading one of your articles. They're always great articles about morning routines. And thanks to you, I implement probably 10 on each side each morning with no weight, or maybe a shoe, or maybe a 10 kilo, nothing special, but just something to get everything woken up before I go onto the day.
Right. One thing that I've been having fun with, and that I talked with Alex about recently, is alternating between either get-ups and hanging or crawling and hanging. So if you just want a basic movement routine, either as a warm-up or something to do first thing in the morning, consider that. You can do it, they call them naked get-ups where you don't have any weight. You can try balancing something if you just want to work on alignment. Because the get-up really is about alignment, right? We're trying to manage some type of load primarily through the stanchion of our skeleton, through the structure of our bony alignment. So there's muscle recruitment involved as well, but there is just pure structural support.
Yep.
And making sure you're getting that alignment on point. So balancing something can be very helpful. Whether it's Dan John recommends like a small little Dixie cup of water. So if it falls over, nobody gets hurt. The traditional thing is to try and balance a shoe on your front two knuckles. So all that's great, right? And you're learning a skill, the skill of being able to get up and off the ground. And you can take that itself even further here's kind of a fun test for people. See how few limbs you can use to get up and off the ground. That's a fun little test.
I like that.
Do you need all 4 limbs to get up and off the ground? If so, okay, all right. Might be some things we want to work on. 3 limbs, better. 2 limbs, okay, cool. Definitely doing well. Can you do it with 1 limb, which essentially means you're somehow like pistol squatting up and off the ground, right?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a really good takeaway. And as a fitness professional, when I work with older people, and if I get up using just my legs, they're always baffled. They're like, "You can do that?" And so we work on the trunk stability and stuff, and it's a good carrot for them too. You should be able to get up off the ground safely. That's a goal for a lot of people.
100%. Yeah. And does everybody have to be able to do it with 1 limb? No. But if you can do it with 1 limb, you probably got a lot of ducks in the row.
Yeah.
Mobility wise, strength wise, that's indicative probably of some good things. It's also just kind of a neat party trick to throw out every now and then.
Oh, it is. Pistol squats and your handstands and stuff like that, handstand and push-ups, that usually is captivating for people.
Yeah, but we know just statistically that being able to get up and off the ground is important, especially for if you're working with clients, aging clients. It's a skill that you definitely want to build in, and Turkish get-ups are a good tool to help with that. You can use it as a daily warm-up, and then if you pair it with some hanging, I think that's an awesome combination, and some crawling. Again, it doesn't have to have a lot of load. It doesn't have to have any load, and you're gonna be stabilizing in the areas you want to stabilize. You're going to be mobilizing in the areas you want to mobilize. So it's one of those movements where you're going to get a lot of juice out of a relatively small squeeze. So do get-ups, yes. And then if you're caught in a blizzard and the tent starts coming down, boom!
Yeah, good to go.
Boom. Yeah.
That's so true. This actually brought up a really good question I had from a client. What are your top 5 fitness goals for most people?
Sure. So if we're thinking about general physical preparedness, I like to break it down. You don't have to break it down this way, but I often like to break it down this way into kind of like categories of physical preparedness or athletic qualities. So when I'm programming, I often think of, okay, what are the kind of like the big ticket items we want to make sure that we're focusing on? Again, for somebody who wants to be a generalist, not necessarily a specialist. But even with specialists, I say we should have at least some degree of all of these, even if we have our primary focus. And it would be things like strength would be one category, right? And that's just the ability to overcome resistance, I think is the easiest way to think about strength. And oftentimes that's measured in terms of like absolute intensity or load, the most amount of weight that I can move for 1 rep at any particular movement. Of course, there's other ways of measuring strength, but that's one way. Hypertrophy, making sure we have some degree of lean muscle mass. Again, that plays into strength. That's helpful for strength, but it's also important for overall health and longevity as well. We know that preserving lean muscle tissue is really important for long-term health. And for strength, it can be a limiting factor. So when we're thinking about strength, there's kind of 2 ways that I like to think about it. One is, I think the analogy that's helpful, I forget where I originally got this. It might have been Dan John. I get a lot of things from Dan John, is to kind of think of your body as a factory and strength as an output. There's kind of 2 ways to increase output. One is you can increase the efficiency of the manager, which is your central nervous system, learning to tense harder, practicing the efficiency at certain movements. But you could also just build a bigger factory, which is putting on more muscle.
I like that.
And at some point you can really increase efficiency, but you just need a bigger factory. at some point. So, and you're always going to get some blend of each, but depending on how you program, you can focus more on the manager side or the general size of the factory. So yeah, strength, hypertrophy, I think 2 important categories that we want to focus on. Also conditioning, right? And this would be the kind of broad spectrum of conditioning. You know, we have the kind of the short, intense conditioning efforts, and we have the longer, more extended conditioning efforts. So I like to include the entire spectrum there. I think there's benefits to be had throughout the entire conditioning or intensity spectrum. And what are examples of that? Well, sprinting on one end, walking on the other. People want
Examples.
just kind of idea, and then jogging would be kind of in the middle for the conditioning. And then mobility and movement therapy or movement practice, right? Making sure that we maintain healthy range of motion through our joints, that we have access through range of motion, and strength and stability of range of motion. And I would put flexibility maybe under that umbrella too, but there is kind of a difference between mobility and flexibility. For me, mobility is control and strength through normal, healthy range of motion. Flexibility is simply access to various ranges of motion, which may extend beyond normal range of motion for most people.
Yeah.
So there are distinctions there. Flexibility work, I'm still a fan of, but it's not the same thing as mobility work. So those are kind of like the broad strokes that I like to focus on for most people. So we have strength, conditioning, hypertrophy, mobility, flexibility, general movement practice, things like that.
Oh, I like that a lot. So that's a very good answer. And that's actually from a client of mine asked me to ask you that this week. So
I'm happy to.
It's important because there's a lot to health, wellness, and fitness. And I don't know that there's like a blanket, you should be able to do 2 times your body weight for deadlift or whatever. People are looking for a definitive thing because it's, everybody's a little bit different with their abilities.
Yeah, it's relative and it's not. Like I think everybody should be strong and sufficiently muscled, but how they're strong and how much muscle, absolutely everybody should strive to be strong and sufficiently muscled. But what that looks like will be somewhat relative according to the individual.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's kind of and I am willing to make that absolute commitment, but then the specifics and the details will depend on who the person is, how old they are, how long they've been in the game, all that sort of stuff, right?
And that's imperative. Like, for example, this person asking this question is a 24-year-old, very healthy male. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL. He's, he loves goals and he's making great progress. Even during this pandemic for virtual training, he's doing fantastic. Whereas another person I might train would be 60 and their goals might be to be able to get up and off the ground safely,
Right. Yeah. So I've worked with SEALs. I've worked with MARSOC. I used to be brought down to Camp Lejeune to train the guys down there. And special forces operators, they need to be good generalists. And part of the reason that me and a couple other dudes were contracted to go down there and work with these guys is because they were killing themselves with specialization.
Yes.
Right? And that's easy for them to do because anybody who's worked with special forces or is like, I don't think it'd be any surprise to realize that these guys are often a very type A mindset. They're very hard workers, right?
Yeah.
Like commitment and hard work isn't a difficult thing for them. So it's easy for them to just go all in on fitness. And hey, that's probably an important mindset for that type of job. So you almost have to kind of fight against their natural impulse and say, hey, we actually need to maybe not go crazy on the fitness routine because we need you to be able to do your job and you guys you're hurting yourselves. And we know that you can. And we had to have these conversations. I'm like, we know you guys can handle pain. Nobody's questioning that, right? You're tough dudes, but just because you can doesn't mean you should be, right? At least in this circumstance. And working with them was always a joy because they're just so focused. They're so easy to work with. They follow instructions so well, and it's they're ideal clients, right? When you work with people in the military, they really are. A lot of our work was focused on let's get away from this kind of hardcore, very specialized, often overly competitive exercise routines that are kind of running you guys down, and let's generalize it. So a lot of what I just said is what I would apply to military special forces types of people. Yeah,
it's spot on. To add to your point, Pat, my good friends Eric Frohart, retired Navy SEAL Team 5 Dev Group. He was a CEO for Strong First, and that's how I got involved with Strong First. And he's on the podcast about a month ago. And I asked him what brought him into the SEALs in the first place. And it basically was a dare. And he jumped into it. Went from an Iowa hog farm to the SEALs, had never been in a helicopter plane, and here he is jumping out of them now. And how did he train for it? Well, like most every person, a young male, overtraining bodybuilding programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he got turned on to the kettlebell and safe training, and look at him now. So you're right; they're very competitive, very driven, and they take coaching very well.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Some of the best people to work with. But yeah, I mean, so we could sketch out like a sample program of something like this, if that would be of interest or help.
That'll blow some minds. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to be highly original because I just did this for my own podcast. I don't know if you caught the episode where I was chatting with Sam and Alex, and we called it the cross gainer program. That's Alex's pun. And we were kind of jamming on a similar question where somebody was asking, this is one that we get a lot, is, how do you best incorporate multiple modalities in training? So say you want to say you have kettlebells and barbells and TRX and pull-up bars, and a lot of our conversation focused on discerning what the kind of killer app or killer function of each of these modalities would be. So I think it should be no surprise for people to understand that the barbell is probably going to be the best tool for overall lower body strength. It's really hard to beat a barbell, especially for something like deadlifting. Oh, yeah, you can deadlift kettlebells, but let's be honest, even two of the heaviest kettlebells are not really all that impressive of a heavy deadlift.
No, I'll get my two beasts over there, and that's not enough for deadlift.
Yeah, it's just not. Granted that, people come at different ability levels, but if you're a serious deadlifter, you're going to outgrow that pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, the benefit with kettlebells, you can train the other end of the force velocity spectrum. So you do the swings and the ballistics, and that's an awesome complement for the barbell. So like if you really want the sort of grinding lower body strength, especially for the hinging patterns, barbell is going to be pretty awesome. You don't get me wrong, you can get a ton of mileage out of the kettlebells, especially for the ballistic hinges and the front squats, especially awesome. Kettlebells are going to be a great tool for that. But if we're talking killer apps, barbell for lower body is definitely somewhere you want to focus on programming that. Kettlebells, as I've consistently held, are like the Swiss Army knife in functional fitness. They can do a ton of things really well. They can get most people most of what they want most of the time from a general fitness standpoint. But their killer app for me is conditioning, metabolic conditioning, complexes, really good for mobility too, underutilized there.
Sure. That's my go-to.
100%, right? So killer apps for kettlebells, I would say, are conditioning and mobility. Yes, can be used for strength. Yes, can be used for hypertrophy. But if we're talking about like, what is it, where does it really shine and sparkle? I think it's in those two areas. The rings, if you're doing some body weight stuff, are great for the upper body strength work, the gymnastic style movement. And then body weight exercise, I think, is awesome also for mobility and conditioning as well. So the kind of program we sketched out, and if anybody wants a PDF of this, you can just email me, because we're kind of giving it away, but I'll give the highlights here if that's cool with you, Sean.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this is a creation of Sam, Alex, and me for people who have access to mixed modalities but want just a kind of a general approach to physical preparedness. So we had on the first day, just call it day one, we have a kind of a heavy deadlift ladder, and you'll just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you'll run that sequence twice, and just go heavy with it. What is heavy? Somewhere maybe within 2 to 3 rep max of each of those rep ranges. So if you're doing 5 reps, probably within your 7 to 8 rep max. And then, by the time you're down to the 1 rep, somewhere within your 2 to 3 rep max. You don't have to go full 1 rep max. That's probably not necessary for this. Run that sequence twice, and then finish up with like 10 to 15 minutes of pull-up practice. And I like the term practice with pull-ups. I think it's very useful. You just put some amount of time on the clock, and you just practice hitting reps. If you're already good at pull-ups, then do weighted pull-ups. Do somewhere between at a time with some weight, attached to your waist. Or for pull-ups, I prefer the weight attached to your waist rather than a vest, because the vest can sometimes distort the mechanics.
Oh, that's good. That's good tip.
Yeah. So just, hit the deadlift ladder, then do some pull-up practice. I think that's a solid combo. That's day one. Day two, we'll do conditioning, and that's where we'll bring in conditioning and some hypertrophy. And that's where we'll bring in the kettlebells. We'll do kind of a higher rep complex. So the one I gave, if I remember the details right, it might be different in the PDF, but it'll be close enough. You'll do 8 reps of the following exercises. You'll go double clean, you'll go double press, double push press, front squat, bent over row, and then push-ups. So that's 6 reps, 8 reps of each. That's going to be pretty nasty. You're going to feel that one. Yeah, you're going to feel that. That's going to jack the heart rate up. You're going to get a good pump, especially the presses to the push presses.
Yes.
So you're going to get the metabolic effect. You're going to get a hypertrophy effect. Do that for, let's say, 20 minutes, as many rounds as you can get. Men probably around like 216 to 220 kilogram kettlebells. Women maybe around like 2.8 kilogram kettlebells or something like that. Cool. And then immediately when that's done, go for a 30 to 60 minute low intensity effort. So this could be a brisk walk. You could go rucking, hiking, something that's you're moving, but at a you could maintain a conversation. So that's a day where we're kind of training on the extremes. We're like on really high intensity with the complex and then extended low level intensity with the walking. So that would be day 2. Day 3 was Alex's contribution. This would be the crawling, hanging, get-ups, pretty much what we talked about at the start of this podcast. So you can have fun with that. It doesn't need to be anything formal. Maybe you put 10 to 20 minutes on the clock. You could crawl for some moderate amount of effort. Again, I don't care about the specifics too much. You're just going to crawl till you feel like you need a break. Then you're going to go hang until you feel like you need a break. Then maybe do a get up or 2, then crawl until you feel like you need a break, hang, and just repeat that for 20 minutes. So it should feel good. It shouldn't be crushing. You probably break like a little bit of a sweat, but it's mostly about movement, mobility, and just, kind of restoration work. So that's day 3. Day 4, if my memory serves me right, we're back to deadlifts, and we will do on a little bit lighter, a little bit more volume. So we'll do 3 to 4 sets of 8 reps, deficit deadlifts. So stand on a platform. You'll focus on range of motion, and you want to be speedy with these. So if you're not doing a ton of weight, definitely focus on the speed. And so 3 to 4 sets of around 8 reps, maybe using somewhere between your like 12 to 15 rep max. So nothing too crazy heavy, focusing on technique, range of motion, and speed. And then follow that up with some pull-up practice. If you weighted pull-ups on day 1, then just do like 3 to 4 sets of max reps at body weight on this day.
Gotcha.
And just push the reps there. If you can't do pull-ups, bent over rows or something like that is fine. Or you could do flexed arm hangs or negatives or some type of progression. I'm glad you addressed that,
because I was going to ask you, if a person can't do a good tactical or chin up, would you recommend a certain duration of time for a hang?
I would. So I'll throw a couple different options out there and people can decide which might work best for them. You could do flex arm hangs, chin ups or pull ups, and supinated versus pronated is the difference there. So just think of it like this: pull ups are palms facing out, chin ups are palms facing toward you. So yeah, you could do a certain amount of hang there, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, where it feels good. And then try and focus on lowering yourself, under control, getting that quality eccentric. If you feel kind of good with that, you feel like, okay, I'm getting pretty solid at that, then start incorporating partial reps. Lower yourself a little bit, then pull back up. And then over time, try and increase that range of motion. So one of the best pull-up progressions to incorporate, and I'm not saying like assistance work isn't useful at all, bands, machines, all that can be useful, but it can also be a hindrance if you don't do it right. But as quickly as you can start registering your own body weight, the better. Yeah. And what you want to focus on is, the statics and the isometric. So the statics and the isometrics, the partial reps and the negative reps, some infusion of all of those. Again, specifics will vary for individuals depending where you're weak and where you're at. But if you start incorporating that, you'll get your first pull up. Yeah. Reasonably soon.
This is super, super helpful. It's spot on too, because the person I'm training today, we're doing heavy deadlifts and we're doing the pull-ups.
I've always loved deadlift and pull-up. I mean, people need it too, because we're like, here we are sitting over like vultures over a microphone. Yeah, I know. So the deadlifts and the pull-ups, and you could add some bent over rows if you wanted to. I'm trying to keep this pretty minimalist, but so this is like minimalist GPP program. Okay. After that, let's do another complex. We'll go heavier with the complex. We'll throw in. So what are we? Is this day 5 now, Sean?
Day 5,
I think it's day. Yeah, day 5. Let's throw Dan John's armor building in there. So that's 2 double cleans, 1 double military press, and 3 front squats. And since the reps are lower, you want to go heavier with this. And I typically recommend somewhere between your 1 to 3 rep pressing max, because the press should be the limiter on this.
Mm-hmm.
If you can press more than you can squat, we've got a whole nother issue, right?
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is sometimes the case. But let's just assume normal circumstance, press is the limiter. So somewhere between your 1 to 3 rep pressing max. Run that on repeat for 20 minutes again, just accumulation, as many good rounds as you can get. Rest as long as you need between sets to feel like you can have a good effort, for your next set. Maybe upwards to even 30 minutes if you're resting for a fair amount of time between sets. And then again, follow that up with another 30 to 60 minute low intensity thing. Walk, ruck, hike. You can go outside and garden. I don't care. Just so long as you're you're moving. Throw the frisbee, play some basketball. Who cares? Have some fun with it, right? Just the idea is just kind of switch the intensity to something more prolonged, but not as intense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then finally we're back to the crawling and hanging day again. So then day 6 would be crawling, hanging, get-ups. Just put some time on the clock, 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes if you're feeling good, and just alternate between that. Mix up crawling variations, crawl forward, backwards, side to side, crawl with your butt high, crawl with your butt low, crab crawl, whatever kind of crawls you want. Just get on the ground and move around. Once you feel like, okay, I'm good there, go hang for a bit of time. Just, try and get some good extension in the shoulders, strengthen those passive structures. Then maybe go hit a get up or two and just repeat that movement matrix, according to your tastes, if you will. Nothing too rigid there. And then on the last day, just you can go for. I always recommend doing something, like never just like lays on the couch. So go for a walk. Maybe do some more crawling, or what I like is having kind of variety in practice days too. So maybe there's a skill you're interested in, like handstands. Go out and practice some handstands, right? Yeah. But just don't do anything like crushing on that day. Keep it light, but try and do some type of active recovery. And there you have the broad strokes of it. What I would say is a decent minimalist general physical preparedness plan.
I think it's more than decent. I'm going to start doing this. This is great. I mean,
and hopefully it's exciting too. I think it's kind of cool, right?
It's really good. And I like that it touches on different kind of modalities, and you get to do some heavy stuff. You get to do mobility. I'm going to jump onto crawling, hanging, and TGUs today. Get my recovery. I'm kind of pent up from doing some heavy kettlebell stuff yesterday. So this will be good. Yeah, this is fantastic.
And there's room in there that you could add some, specificity to anything you're interested in. So if say you're interested in splits, okay, we'll put in 5 minutes of practicing the splits before every section or session. It's minimalist enough that if you have something else, you could probably, I want to say probably, but not absolutely, add that something else without spoiling the entire program. Now, of course, I'm always hesitant to offer that as a possibility, because then people start adding and then taking away, and then before you know it, doesn't even resemble its original self.
Yeah.
So with those qualifications being said, yeah.
That's really good advice. And it's kind of funny, I'm sure you encounter this a lot, when people ask for advice for myself and I give it to them and then they start tweaking it a lot. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I gave you something really well thought out for your benefit.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, your program didn't work. Well, it wasn't my program.
Yeah. You took it
right. You kept the one exercise. Yeah. So, and that's a judgment call with the type of people you're working with. Obviously. Now, in general, I often say, don't mess with it, because I don't know who I'm talking to on a podcast. So if I don't know you, you don't get to mess with it.
No.
Just do the damn program.
Yeah.
If I do know you and I know you're reasonable and responsible and can think things through, I might give you a little bit of leeway. Maybe sometimes, but there's other people that they just need that strict.
They do. Those
strict and hard boundaries. And and then you just pay no attention to the what about. So what if, or what about this? No, just here it is. Do it prove to me you can do this for 3 months as is, and then we can talk after that.
I love it. Yeah, especially if they have the right tools. I know right now is a very unique time where people, here in Denver alone, like, people can't get the tools. There was like 4-day window where I got notified from my affiliate Rep Fitness for kettlebells are in stock, dumbbells are in stock, T-Rex is in stock. I sent out links to everybody and I ordered $1,000 worth of stuff for my clients. And then I went and delivered it like Fitness Santa that next week.
Fitness Santa.
And I want to make sure everybody has the tools at home. And unfortunately, some people can't have the tools at home right now, so we have to get a little bit creative. But
Right. So what would be the limitation? Probably barbells. A lot of people might not have barbell at home. Fair enough. Do some double swings in there.
Mhm.
Just swap in double swings in the meantime. So it's tweakable in a quarantine sense, I suppose.
I like that. And
Yeah.
I like to use a lot of doubles. I'm used to doing a lot of singles coming from the SFG stuff, but doubles are where it's at too. I mean, it's nice to get the heavier load.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a both and for me. I mean, singles have so it's not absolute, but generally, single kettlebell complexes, you're going to be able to produce more of a kind of endurance benefit from that. But doubles, you're going to get more of a, generally, not absolutely speaking, more of a hypertrophy benefit. So they're different tools that you can use to accomplish different ends.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Well, that program right there is priceless. Like when that PDF is out, I want to share it with my listeners. They're going to get so much benefit out of that.
It's not even a PDF. It's a 1-page Google Doc. So Sean, I'll send you the link, and you can it's a shareable link, and anybody can have it. Yep.
Oh, wonderful. That's going to help a lot of people, and for free. I mean, how generous is that, Pat? I appreciate that.
Fitness Santa.
Fitness Santa. Two of them here.
Santa. Yeah. Fitness Santa in mid-June. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
But no, I know. I hope that's helpful, because it's, you know me, I'm a principles guy. I love focusing on principles, because if you can get the stuff figured out at the bottom, then it helps downstream. You can think your way through specific issues. But at the same time, we need specifics, right? We can't just like do principles, right? It's principles applied. We want principles applied. So I think we've had, a fair number of conversations on principles that hopefully now these specifics give some kind of like concrete context of how to incorporate that.
Well, they do. Think about this. This is our 6th podcast together, and I think this is the most we've done about specific fitness, actionable,
Yes.
Which is pretty funny when you think about it, because you're very well known for being like the kettlebell guru. So
yeah, I mean, like if you go on my YouTube, you'll find almost only specifics. It's just workouts. But if you follow my written stuff on my podcast, it's almost all principles, not as many specifics. Yeah. And I want both, right? I want you to know the principles, but have the specifics, but to understand why, how best to apply the specifics, right? Yeah. It's a hard balance. It's a hard thing to do. And I'm doing the best I can. Sometimes I fail miserably, but having these conversations helps. Yep.
Well, we all appreciate it. And it's fun, because the last few conversations, we've gone very deep into philosophy and some very heady topics that are always great to talk about. But now it's like, just do the double cleans, do the press, do the squat, shut up, go walk the dog.
There you do. Yeah. Walk the dog, right? There's some great, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
yeah. And you'll get a lot of mileage out of a program like that. You really will. So I hope, if anybody does it and you do it for a solid 2 months, let's say, I would love to hear what you get out of it. I would.
Absolutely. And I'm going to implement it with one of my guys, the young man I'm training this afternoon. And, as a fitness person, yesterday I was on a podcast with a person who runs a fitness school, KIPS. And, each state, each city has a different regulations, and some things are opening up here in Denver. We're allowed to do 25% capacity in our gym. And it's the first time I've been in my gym in 3 months. I went Wednesday. We had a group meeting to discuss what safe parameters look like. And it was nice to see my colleagues and the gym owner.
Yeah.
So today will be my first time training in a gym in 3 months.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, so Wisconsin, it was a source of a controversy a number of weeks ago, but it seems to have worked out because we opened up. And life is not completely back to normal here. I mean, again, I think people kind of jump the gun and be like, those hooligan Wisconsinites, they don't know what they're doing. But the truth is even when the Supreme Court reversed the governor's order, it's like the vast majority of businesses did not open right away. And when they did open, they reopened with very sensible procedures, right?
Yes.
So things are open here, but I have not been, and I've been out and about, a decent amount, but it's not like before it was, before the shutdown at all. Almost all businesses have, especially restaurants, like it's kind of weird to see. You go in and like everything's really spaced out and super procedural, right? Yep. So, which is good. Like we want to see people taking responsible measures, and it seems like it's worked. It's been fine in Wisconsin. So
well, I'm glad to hear that. That it's different for everybody in every location, and different specifics. For us, we're, like I said, 6 feet apart. I'm going to be wearing a mask. That's the guidelines for Denver County. And we have a thermometer so we can take temperatures. We have a new waiver. But overall, everybody's easing into it, right? And there's a lot of the population that doesn't want to come back, understandably, because they are older, more susceptible, and they should be more cautious. And so for them, virtual help. I've met some people in a park. I mean, I've got all the gear, so I go to a park and hang a TRX and bring some kettlebells and
it's awesome.
Sunshine. Yeah, I love it. I would prefer to train outside all the time, actually. I don't like being indoors. But
well, no, so that wouldn't work in Wisconsin for about 8 months, but when we can do it at Wisconsin, it's gorgeous.
Is there a lot of humidity up where you are?
A what?
Humidity? Do you have a lot of humidity up there?
No, not too bad. So coming from where I was in Pennsylvania is, I don't think people appreciate how terrible of a state that is to live in weather-wise, because it gets pretty brutal winters. I have experienced worse winters in Pennsylvania than I have in Wisconsin. I've lived in both states for about an equal number of years of my life, and I've been more haunted by the winters in Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania also has exceedingly brutal summers, because you get very hot days, 90s, but also massive humidity too. Yeah. So it's not like a dry heat in Pennsylvania. So, and the old gym, Dragon Gym, which my buddy Sam owns, which was my home base for years, it was notorious because it was never comfortable, because it's like an old warehouse. So it's either like freezing cold or it's just deathly hot and humid. There's almost no in between. Wisconsin is, we have the winters and they're not too far off from the stereotypes. Of course, it depends where you're at. Northern Wisconsin is quite different than where I am in southern Wisconsin. But winters, they're Wisconsin winters. There's no doubt about it. But the summers here are just pristine. We get beautiful weather, super green, not a lot of humidity, regular little, not too many scorching hot days, but like good enough heat that you can go swimming. So it's just, for me, it's the perfect summer climate.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I grew up in Omaha, and that weather, like Pennsylvania, it's humid, and when it's cold, and it stays cold for a long time. When it's hot, it stays hot for a very long time. Here in Colorado, it's so moderate. Like, even though we had a blizzard Monday, Tuesday, we're wearing shorts again.
Right. Yeah. That's more my style. That's more my style. I really struggled with the weather in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of beauty in Pennsylvania. Don't get me wrong, but the weather made it difficult.
Oh, I bet. Plus, probably have less bugs. I mean, we don't have hardly any bugs out here.
Yeah, what do we have here in Wisconsin? We actually, it's not too dissimilar from PA in terms of the really annoying bugs. I'm pretty sure that both Wisconsin and PA are, I don't know which one's higher, but I'm pretty sure both are in the top 3 states for ticks and Lyme disease.
Ooh, bad enough.
Yeah, so like the most annoying ones are pretty bad in both states.
Yeah, that's bad. Well, like today, I was out walking the dogs, and I saw dragonflies and a yellow butterfly. That's the way to deal with. That's nice stuff. Yeah, really.
Yeah, I'm all about those, like woolly bear caterpillars, the nice ones.
Yeah, the nice ones. I like that. Well, fuzzy. That's good stuff. Well, speaking of kid-friendly stuff, what are you working on outside of fitness? I know you have a lot of writing projects and you're very creative. You cooking up anything over there?
Yeah, I am. I'm working on a philosophical project. So my master's program focused a lot on what's called natural theology and metaphysics, which is, what's the best way to explain it? Kind of focusing on the ultimate foundation of things, in the order of being. So a lot of focusing on what can we know ultimately about reality as a whole from the perspective of reason alone. So my work focused a lot on arguments for the existence of God and the attributes of God. So I've been taking a lot of that and trying to put it into a more popular level book of how to think about God, not from the standpoint of any religion, but from the standpoint of reason, of how can we deploy various philosophical arguments, not only to know that God exists and know with a very definitive certitude, which I think we can, but also know something about what God is like. How can we know that God is transcendent, immaterial, pure actuality, omnipotent, omniscient, unique, and absolutely simple, ontologically simple, things like that. So that was a big area of my focus. And I've been really trying to not let that just kind of become a stale academic project and be like, I want to get this forward in more of a popular way, for reasons that I think are culturally important. There's just a lot of just horribly crude conversations and debate about religion out there, and I want to try and cut through that and give a much more calculated and I think sophisticated perspective from the angle of philosophy, which then may well extend to religion, but I'm not starting from a religious perspective. So that's been my project for the past 6 or 7 months, and like any project, it's exceedingly tedious, and I have no idea when it will actually be finished, and also a far cry from fitness.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. What a huge concept too to tackle,
Mm-hmm.
and much needed.
Yeah, and I'm drawing upon a lot of both traditional great thinkers, Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, Boethius, Aquinas, but more contemporary thinkers and as well. And I'm trying to create a synthesis and a harmony. And the difficult thing for me, Sean, this is always a difficult thing, right? Is to make something both accessible but robust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard balance to strike in almost anything, because you want it to be for a general audience, but you don't want to dilute anything either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's tough. We'll see. I don't want to make any promises, but that's what I've been working on. Yep.
Yep. That would keep anybody busy for a long time. Yeah, I like what you said. Like, you don't want to make it so. We want to make it accessible, obviously, but you don't make it so simple that you take away from the depth of it, for sure.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a trade-off in some regards. So my trade-off would probably be in the direction of rigor. My trade-off will be I want it to be more rigorous and accessible. So I kind of start off from the beginning saying, like, look, there's going to be some parts here that are just going to be challenging, especially if you're new to philosophy. But roll up your sleeves and we'll get to work, and I'll help you through it.
Oh, I dig it. I'm looking forward to getting to that. Well, like you, I'm working on something not as profound as that, but so I'm working on a Father's Day gear guide. We do this every year, and we have a bunch of fathers on the team, and so we get a few of their favorite items and stuff. And like you, I don't want to just do like what everybody else does, a top 10 list of Father's Day gift guides. It's like one paragraph. Like that has no depth. It's just like a hit list of affiliate links, So what I'm doing is going through and having a list, sure, but then a link to the full video review from the person using that gear in the elements. So you have
cool.
Yeah. So like, are you curious about how this Patagonia Houdini fits and looks on a trail runner? There's Drew. Boom. And so we have all these men, and fathers that are 65 years old. You have this Welsh guy, Will Rickards, fantastic. He's got this awesome accent, and him and his son like camping tarps on top of mountains. So you get all these different people, a lot of depth to it, right? Not just like go buy this vodka or this, whatever it is.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No, that's an awesome idea. I love that.
Cool, man. I appreciate it. I'll send you over a copy. I'll be done probably by Sunday. So.
Yeah, please do. I would enjoy that very much. I had a thought about that, and it just flung right out of my head, Sean. So apologies.
No worries. I was thinking about you actually in the guide. Like, what would Pat Flynn benefit from? There was a few things. Patagonia Provisions makes some really good organic food. So that's always nice. But they also make a beer, gluten-free beer.
I'm interested.
It is tasty.
Yeah, there's gluten-free beers have definitely gotten better in the past my entire life that I've been drinking beer. I remember the first couple I had, I forget the brand, they were so awful that I almost never tried one again. But then I tried some other ones, like, oh, okay, all right, there's potential here. And now there's a few that I'm like, oh, these are actually pretty good.
They have come a long ways for sure. It's kind of funny. I get sent a lot of different kind of things to test. And this last year, I've been sent more vodka, whiskey, scotch, and beer than ever. It is pretty awesome problem to have. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a sign in a restaurant the other day that I was thinking about stopping drinking, but then I wondered why I would take advice from a drunk person.
I like it.
I thought that was cute.
I'll have to use that. There's a lot of good ones too. I think Homer's got a great one too. To alcohol, the cause and solution to all of problems.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, proof that God loves us is the classic one as well.
Ben Franklin, good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. That always makes me curious because like there's always people that have all these quotes attributed to them, but then you like do some digging, you're like they never actually said that, and like now that might be true, and I don't know. I haven't looked that one up, but it's always seems to be people like Franklin, Einstein, and Mark Twain. And you vet some of these quotes out, and then it turns out now they never actually said that. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. There's this funny meme I used to use all the time. I had a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and it's like, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So,
yeah, by Abraham Lincoln.
By Abraham Lincoln, quote.
Right.
True. Yeah. And that's kind of interesting too, because like, you have a very big population of people you serve, and we have a pretty good audience too. And, we talked about this last week about the power of media, right? Like you and I are doing our best to portray things as accurately, honestly, and with love and all the proper ways of approaching things. But media, you can do whatever you want, especially with the internet. Anybody can publish anything, and somebody might share it, and then there's misinformation. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many issues there. One, I think, is definitely cultural. I mean, the whole idea of virtue has just gone out the window. So it's just kind of a shame that we even have to rely so much on kind of external forces, or even the idea that we would need, such a kind of imposing external force just to keep people from sharing nonsense. It's like people should have an internal obligation to feel like they shouldn't share nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So that's that's a tough thing. And I've been thinking about that, of what the possible solutions are there. And then there's the whole debate with social media and this is recently political debate, is like, should they be considered platforms or publishers? Right. And then in the laws don't help, because you have like clauses like good faith clauses. And it's like, those are like accordion terms, right? It could mean virtually anything you want or nothing at all. And it's like, how do we adjudicate this? Right. So, yeah, I mean, but I'm with you. I mean, I think it starts by recognizing that we have a moral obligation to seek out what is actually true and to report what is true. And if we're not sure about things, to be upfront and honest about that and say, hey, here's kind of where I'm leaning. I think this might be true. Here's a working hypothesis. But at the end of the day, I could be wrong. I'm not entirely, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with hedging your claims and saying, this is what I think. This is where I'm at. That's not untrue at all. But yeah, that is I forget what your original point was, but
what was the don't put bad information out there, people. Like, vet it.
Right. So I just hit publish on an article on my site of 7 logical fallacies to be aware of before you get into an online debate. So that was my little contribution to this. Right?
I'll have to check that out. Like, you run a very big Facebook group, and we have, every time I talk to you, it's like 500 new people. I think we're at 9,000 people for our backcountry ski group. So every day, all day long, we're going through, trying to like go through people's information they're putting out there. Is this accurate? What's their angle? And trying to, it's hard. It's very hard.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the benefit, I guess, of at least studying logic. And I make that at the beginning, is first off to understand that no political party or ideology has a monopoly on bad thinking. It happens all over the place. And I actually tried to use examples from both sides of the political spectrum for each fallacy. Just to prove the point that, it's not monopolized by any one side. But that logic is one of my favorite quotes from Hemingway, is that, the greatest gift of any writer is having a kind of built-in shockproof bullshit detector. And you develop that by being trained in logic, right? By understanding the structure of thought and studying both formal and informal fallacies. So I just tried to identify 7 that have seemed especially common as of late, again, on both sides. And just, for the sake of 2 things, both kind of like offensively and defensively, in the sense that if you're making arguments, keep these in mind so you don't make the mistake, right? But also if you're being attacked or assaulted, right, to make sure that you're not being, manipulated or taken advantage of or something like that. So yeah, the article's on the website if anybody's interested in taking a peek.
I'll put in the show notes to share that for sure. Anything to help people, they need some help.
Indeed. Yeah. And we are living in times where political rhetoric is cheap, emotional manipulation is easy, and any type of curriculum in thinking and logic has virtually vanished from
Oh
school.
yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we're doing our best over here. I mean, I see very intelligent people just getting sucked into social media and news cycles and just getting demoralized, and it's painful. So
yeah.
yeah, so hats off to you for putting that together. I'm going to share that with our audience, and
Yeah.
hopefully it helps.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's there. We'll see.
Between the workout and this, I think we're going to put people in good directions.
I sure hope so, Sean. I really do.
That's our goal.
Mhm.
Well, Pat, I always appreciate talking to you. We always cover some huge topics and directly actionable for our listeners and our viewers. And I'm going to put links to the workout. That workout is legit. Like, that is very well thought out.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll send you.
Cool.
I'll send you the Google Doc right after this if you want to
That'd be
link that.
fantastic. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes, as well as the link to your the logic, the 7 points there. And gosh, well, Pat, is there anything you want to leave listeners with before we jump off here, get to our weekends?
Be excellent to one another. I saw that there's a new Bill and Ted coming out soon, and I'm pumped for that.
Really?
Did you hear about this? Yeah,
Not yet.
yeah. With Keanu, right? Yeah, there's a new Bill and Ted due out, I think, next year, which is so funny because like Keanu's been like, I mean, he's John Wick now.
Yeah,
and now he's going to go back to now he's going back to Bill and Ted. Like, what a versatile actor that dude is.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for him. That'd be great.
Yeah. So be excellent to one another and to yourself. Seek excellence.
That is fantastic advice. I'll double down on that. Well, Pat, thank you for your time as always. Much love to you and your family. Enjoy your time with your father-in-law. And if I don't see you by next Father's Day, happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you, Sean. Enjoy it yourself.
Will do, sir. And to you listeners out there and viewers, as always, I'm going to have all these show notes to help you out. Pat's an awesome resource, awesome person. We'll have links to his websites. Do check him out. He is a fantastic human being. And much love to your families. Happy early Father's Days to you, and take care.